Hey guys, Adam here with AmericanMuscle.com, and today we're taking a closer look at and of course installing the BBK 90mm throttle body, available for the 2013 to 2018 5.7 HEMI and 6.4 liter equipped Challengers. You should be checking this out for your Challenger if you are heavily modded or even have forced induction set up under that hood and you're looking to pull in more air to translate to more power. When you're at that point of having a heavily modified or forced induction vehicle, the stock 80mm throttle body just becomes a bottleneck. Your engine's producing so much power that you're requiring a little bit more airflow into the manifold, and the 90mm throttle body here from BBK is going to be a great choice. If you are running a stock or lightly modified vehicle, you might be interested in keeping the 80mm throttle body or maybe upgrading to the 85mm throttle body, but your 90mm here is just going to be a little bit too big to benefit on a stock or even lightly modified vehicle. The reason being, your vehicle just doesn't require the more airflow that the 90mm would provide. As a matter of fact, it might actually even rob you of a little bit of power because it would be pulling in too much air, in which case it could translate into a negative thing. Now I know that sounds a little bit surprising, but if you're running a stock vehicle, the 80mm stock throttle body does a great job. And if you're running a lightly modified vehicle, the 85mm throttle body is a good choice, but the 90 would just be a little bit too big for most cases. But heavily modified and forced induction vehicles will definitely reap the benefits here. Now, because this is meant for heavily modified and forced induction vehicles, it does not work with your factory intake or your factory stock intake tubing. The tubing is just too small. It's meant for that 80mm throttle body, so when trying to install it with the 90mm, it just doesn't fit. You will need an aftermarket intake. This particular option does come with an OEM throttle gear, a double sealed bearing, and an O-ring seal just to make sure it's got that leak-free finish or air leak-free finish, and it comes with everything bolted up right to the throttle body here. No need to transfer over any OEM parts from your stock throttle body to make this work. Right out of the box, bolts right up to your 5.7 or your 6.4. Huge benefit here from BBK. Some of the other options on the market, especially those refurbished or reconstructed options out there, would require you to take apart your factory one and put some things here, but you don't need to worry about that with your BBK option. This one is constructed from a 356 cast aluminum housing. It's all OEM materials essentially, only difference being it's got that BBK Power Plus logo right at the top here, letting you know it's a 90mm, so you're repping some BBK pride. I actually like that a little bit. It's pretty subtle and it's cast right into the materials, unlike some plate that's bolted up separately. This option comes in right around 500 bucks. Now I will say this does not require a tune, but since it's for heavily modified and even forced induction vehicles, you're probably going to want to pick up a tune when you're upgrading, especially from the stock 80mm jumping up to the 90. You'll reap all the benefits, maximize your potential, and with the bigger mods that you have, you want to make sure that you're tuning that ECU to make sure it's working properly with all the mods under the hood. With all of that in mind, 1 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter for this install. An hour, maybe a little bit less if you have some experience with this. Anybody can tackle it in the driveway at home, but I will say if you have a heavily modified or forced induction vehicle, especially twin turbos, we all know space can be a little scarce under the hood, so it can get a little tricky to fit some tools down there to get your factory one off, but nonetheless, once you get that off, easy bolt-on install for the throttle body here. I will say simple hand tools will do the trick, but of course it depends on your particular setup under the hood. Tools used for the throttle body install include a 1/4-inch ratchet, small extension, and an 8mm deep socket. What we're going to have to do before we unbolt anything is disconnect our sensor harness from the side here. That's got that red locking tab, and I'd suggest grabbing a flathead that can just pry back on that locking tab, give it a good pinch, and it'll pull straight back. All right, now we can grab our 8mm socket here and just back out these 4 bolts. And there's 2 on the top and then 2 underneath. You want to set these aside because you will be reinstalling them with your new BBK. Pop this right off and set it aside. All right, so you just saw us take our factory 80mm option off of our 5.7. It's on the table next to the BBK 90, and I know I already talked about a lot of the details for your new throttle body from BBK, but I just wanted to give you that quick side-by-side comparison. As you can see, they look pretty identical with the exception of the diameter of the outlet. This being a 90, obviously 10mm bigger than the factory option, but as you can see, All of the other components stay pretty much the exact same. It uses an OEM throttle gear, although you're not transferring anything over. It also has that double sealed bearing and the O-ring seal, so all of that pretty much stays the same. There's not a whole lot different. Even the materials are the same with the exception of a couple of color changes. So with all that said, I want to show you guys how this gets bolted up. And as you can see from the back here, it's a little bit clearer. The OEM locations where your screws will go through are the exact same. We're even going to reuse the factory screws to get this installed. So what do you say we set this aside and get to it? Now the first step here, just grab the BBK 90mm. Also grab the 4 screws included from your factory setup. What you're going to do is just make sure that the gasket is in place on the factory location. If it's not there, check the back of your factory throttle body. You can pull that off and just pop that right around the seal. Ours is there. So what we're going to do is just grab this, our factory screws, and start threading them in by hand. I find it to be a little easier sometimes to just grab a small extension with an 8mm deep socket and just put the screw on the end of that. Gives you just a little bit more leverage to get these installed, especially in these deep pockets. Just line those up with the factory location. And I like to just tighten them down a little bit to hold the throttle body in place while we work on all 4. Grab a ratchet. Still using that extension, of course you don't need to, but I just find it to be a little easier. And just tighten all of these down. You want to make sure you don't over tighten these because they are going into a hardened plastic, so you don't want to strip them out. Once you have that tightened down, make sure it's secure. Grab your factory sensor wire, wrap that around the top like it was on the factory one. Just snap that into place, pushing down the red locking tab. Well guys, that's going to wrap up my review and install for the BBK 90mm throttle body, available for heavily modified or forced induction, 13, 18, 5.7, or 6.4 equipped challengers. You can get yours right here at AmericanMuscle.com.